Is your cloud storage filled with document upon document of lore sheets, writer's notes, and probably a digital mimic or two ready to pounce? I thought so, you nerds! I have just the solution for your world building and DMing needs, and it's World Anvil. World Anvil is a set of world building tools to help you create, organize, and store your world setting, whether it is for your next campaign or your next novel. Recommended by amazing GMs like those over at Critical Role, Ginny D, and your favorite drag queen turned GM. That's right, me. I recommend it. I highly recommend it. I have it. I've been using World Anvil for years to work on my little world called Telric, and it's great to have just a place to organize my thoughts where it's not just a folder within a folder within a folder. It asks you some really comprehensive questions to make sure your world is fully fleshed out. Use code Shelly51 for 51% off any premium subscription. That's right. That code will get you 51% off your next favorite tool set for the next year. Make sure to check out World Anvil today and get started. And drop your link in the comments because I want to see what you come up with. All right? Check out World Anvil at www.worldanvil.com. Hello and welcome back to After the Table, a TTRPG podcast. 'Tis I, your super queer drag queen, Shelly Von Miller. Y'all, we're 2 episodes away from the season finale of our 3rd season. 1, that means we've been doing this for a year and a half. 2, what? The fact that I haven't been canceled yet. There you go. Hey, so I want to thank everyone from the bottom of my cold, dead, black heart. I greatly appreciate you listening to a queer make content on the internet. I guess art. Is this art? Would you cut art? It's art, right? Well, you know what? Speaking of people who make wonderful queer art on the internet, we are joined this week by the founder and producer of the queerest award-winning TTRPG podcast. I consider it the queerest. They aim to highlight marginalized players and game designers, and I got to be on one of their productions in 2025. I'm just saying, you should probably go listen to it. I'll link it down below. Welcome to the table, Eric from the Queer XP. Hello, darling.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Hi. I'm so glad to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on for a while, and I'm like, okay, it's gonna happen. All right, it's gonna happen now. So, I'm it's one of those things. There are tons of people that I want on the podcast, and it's just having to figure out, 1, availability, and 2, when I want them on.
Yeah.
The production side of this podcast is running me ragged, I think. So for those who don't know who the Queer XP or what the Queer XP is and who you are, let the people know. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Eric. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm the founder, producer, and co-host of the Queer XP, which is an actual play podcast where we do a bunch of indie tabletop games. We range mostly from one-shots to about 4 or 5 episode mini campaigns. We are... By the time this drops, we will just be finishing our 4th season, with season 5 picking back up in the fall. So we have been very busy for 4 years now, which feels bonkers.
Yeah, it's one of those things like you're like, oh, how long have we? 4 years. Oh, it feels like just yesterday, and then you realize that 4 years was. It's 2026 right now. 4 years was like a while ago. It was 2022, and we're like, what is going on? I math, time is soup. Time is a weird soup.
Yes.
But what got you into playing TTRPGs? What's your origin story with TTRPGs?
Yeah, so my origin story is, I mean, mostly it was like I met some friends who were very much into Dungeons and Dragons and wanted to run a campaign. And I was like, I don't know about much of this. I've only like loosely heard of it here or there. Um, and it was when I was like I was out of grad school, and so I finally had time to like do things and be a person. And so I started my tabletop journey on D&D 4th edition, um, which and I came back, so that's something. And then from there it was very, very quickly like I once I got that, I was like, oh, there's got to be more games out there. Immediately jumped into a GM spot because I figured out also very, very fast that if you want to play different games, you probably have to run them. Unless you manage to have a friend who's like, I'll learn
Yeah,
everything.
for
Uh,
real. It's you're either the friend or you have the friend.
yeah. But yeah, so and that was in, I think, 2010 or 11. So it's been a few years. Again, time is a construct. Uh, but it's been, yeah, I think that's like 16 years or so that I've been in the tabletop sphere in some capacity.
Oh my goodness. To think, I mean, as somebody who went to grad school, I totally understand the I don't have other time. The fact that I was able to do drag while I was in grad school was, hey, it's only because I needed the money. I was just like, I need to go work in the club real quick. Let me let me do this. It's either that or I'm on the pole. Hey, and you know what? That's okay. But
Yep.
also, hey, grad students, unionize, get better pay, get health insurance. There you
All
go.
those parts.
All those parts. Yeah, just unionize, piss off your university. Um, but so you've you've been playing TTRPGs for a while. How did you get into the actual play space then?
Yeah. So I was during COVID, I was one of the many stay at home nerds who was like, I need to do something to like pass the time. And I actually started on Twitch. So I started streaming video game content on Twitch. And then not that when COVID was over, because it wasn't over when they were like, you can go back outside. But at the point at which people were starting to go back outside, I think my Twitch journey quickly wound down because it was harder to keep a consistent schedule. It was harder to keep kind of, or at least for me, it was harder to keep that consistency. I was seeing like it was harder to get people to actually like tune in because again, people were going back outside. And I was like, but I really like making content in different ways. And I had done a couple of tabletops on other people's Twitch streams. And I had a friend who was like, why don't you just podcast? And so that kind of segued me into like, okay, like that I could get to play a whole pile of tabletop RPGs. I would get to meet a bunch of cool people and we'll record and then put the episodes out. And so that was the whole first season. I think the whole first season is like every episode is 2 parts because I was learning editing and it took me a long time. But we just started really simple with, people that I knew and just played fun games and was having a good time with it.
Yeah, as somebody who makes full-time content, it's one of those things. Once you get bit by the bug, you're like, I want to do something else. Let me explore this. What was Twitch your way to get bit by the content bug, or were you making content elsewhere?
I think Twitch was very much like the where I started actually like making like actual content in the like internet worlds. Like I was active on social media and all those things, but I wouldn't call that like making content. I was just terminally online, which that hasn't changed. But now I just make some content while I do it.
That's so real. Like, yeah, terminally online is just a good thing. But you kind of mentioned how the Queer XP got started, but like, what did that progression look like from live streaming things that you like playing to pre recording and then editing and everything like that?
Yeah, I think for me it was like that's which for me was so like it felt freeing to be quite honest because before when I was Twitch streaming it was like okay, every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday or whatever like I'm going to be on camera, I'm going to be like it doesn't matter if I'm on and having a good day, like I'm going to be streaming, I got to try and keep my follower count up and all of that. and then sliding it over to this process where it was like, hey, friends, let's play a game on Saturday afternoon, couple hours, and then I'll take it, I'll edit it, I'll do this. And I try to do a good job of like giving myself enough buffer when I first started that like I had probably 2 or 3 months of like, I can edit these over time and try and make sure that I'm because I had to teach myself how to edit. I had no skill in that before. I questioned whether I still have skill in it. I do it. Am I skilled at it? Separate issue. But yeah, so I think for me that was, I really liked making that switch because again, like, and I wasn't getting the feedback in real time about if we were doing well or not. And when I left Twitch, I just don't think it's a big jump to say like it wasn't going well. I would do streams and have 1 to 2 people in chat. Sometimes it was just a bot that I was just vibing and you're like, all right, I'm playing DBD for 3 hours and ain't nobody paying attention. So I think there's a little bit more, you could see the excitement when an episode's dropped and when people were talking about it, when it happened, and people could listen to it on their own time and be able to engage with it that way. So I liked making that switch for me.
Yeah, as somebody who, I still do both. I still stream and, do this. It's one of those things, it's like, oh, people are really excited about this. And then it's like, oh, here's real-time feedback. And you're like, well, but I like the ability to do both. I like being able to have the option.
Yeah.
At least. It's the option, I also make it to where it's like, oh, you can, whenever I do like co-working streams, I'm like, this is my behind the scenes, this is my workflow. Yeah. That way, if people are wanting to get an idea of what production looks like for content and wanting to get into the content space, it's like, it's not as easy as snapping a picture and calling it a day. It's literally, there's hours and hours of just grinding, just grinding along. You're like, oh, well, okay. That's why they call it the grind, kids. You're literally grinding the wheel forward and hoping to God it works.
And hoping at some point it picks up traction and just starts rolling on its own.
Exactly. Eventually you'll learn how to put a tire on that car and stop being on the hubcap. I mean, we mentioned it before, 4 years. What has been the most memorable part of the Queer XP where you're like, yeah, we did something great here?
I mean, like, I feel like it's probably the most obvious, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Like, we won a crit award, which was, and like winning it was definitely like an incredibly special moment, but I think it was even like making it through like the submission process into like you're a finalist. Like, I remember when I got that email, I think I was even more like blown away at the idea when they talked about the numbers of how many people had submitted for that like particular the category that we were up for. And it was one of those things, like, it was just a really not only just for me, but for like the whole team, because we now have a team of about 9 or 10 people that work on this pod. And it was like, I think it was a very validating moment for a lot of folks being like, hey, like we always knew that we have something here and that it's special and that there's something about the tables that we're able to make that just create great opportunity for folks. But it was, I think that whole process. And then when Connie from Transplaner, I think is there. Yes. Came on and started reading. And like, when they said like my pod's name, I was in because you watch them on like a Twitch stream, like you just watch it from your home. So I like my boyfriend and a friend were both over, and like I'm like standing in the middle of my living room crying, being like, we won an award. Like, here's this like little thing that was just like a fun thing that we do because we want to just create some fun space, and then to have it be recognized in that way was very much like a peak moment for me and for the whole pod.
I love that. Yeah, I that was last year. To think that was just last year, because it's so long ago. It seems like, but I watched the live stream and I was just so excited whenever y'all got one nominated, but then one. I was like, fuck yes. Yes, I know those people. Hell yeah. I whenever I got told I was nominated, I was like, who nominated me? One, who the fuck nominated me? Two, huh? And then just being able to say I'm nominated or like people recognize what I did, I think that's kind of memorable as well. What does it feel like to have that recognition within the community?
I mean, I think it's obviously like it was really validating and I think endearing to know that people feel so positively about like the work that we do. Um and I think for me, one of the biggest things with the pod has always been trying to create spaces where people feel welcomed and comfortable and are able to have, um, it's the pod name, but they're able to have queer experience at the table. Because we get so many applications for casting calls that will specifically say like, I've never sat at an all queer table. Um, and, and definitely I've absolutely transparently, like I prioritize some of those people and like we need to get them to the table. Like they need to have this kind of an experience because it changes how you feel about playing tabletop games. Um, and I think the story that got the crit award was our Burning Hearts Forever miniseries. And there was something so incredibly special about that story because the cast was so good. It was predominantly, I would say predominantly not cis, and it was I think we were 50-50 with people of color at the table. And so I think it was just a very good experience for everybody. And so I personally, like, I was excited for the pod, but I was also like pumped that the cast, like what they were able to make and that story that they were able to tell, was again, just so important, I think, in making sure that like queer voices were put out there. And I know there's a lot of other queer APs that do a lot of really good work. So again, I think that was just an extra, like, we're doing something right over here because people seem to be noticing it.
I mean, on that note, how do you make sure your tables are not just diverse within the LGBTQIA community, but also in other, I mean, sectors of people's lives, of, you know, making sure BIPOC people are noted, represented, gender is represented as well?
So our casting form is, I would say it's robust enough. It's robust to just enough. Where like, you know, I've definitely seen some, and this is not to slight other people and how they run their things, but where it'll be like, we need some essays, we need a bunch, like it's a couple pages worth of info, which can be very daunting, I think. We ask some very specific demographic questions. We ask a couple questions about what you do, and then we get all of those on the back end. We literally go through and kind of code them a little bit, right? So anybody who comes in who is a player of color, we code in a certain way, and we will slot all of our games when we're casting with people of color first to make sure that we hit the 50% for every single, if it's a bunch of one shots or if it's a campaign or whatever it is, we will slot all of those positions first, to make sure that we've got folks slotted in, and then we'll continue filling it out with the rest of everybody that has submitted. And while we're doing all of that, having those conversations about like, okay, this table looks like it's, you know, all, you know, cis men. We got to break that up a little bit. We can't have all of this. Or sometimes it ends up going the other way. We're like, a couple of times we've slotted a table and then looked at it and went, oh wow, the whole table is non-binary. We didn't have that intention going in, but now that we've got it, like, oh, we could do something, like is there something we can do around that? Is there something we can focus in on that? So there's 3 of us that are right now currently responsible for casting decision, and we will hop on a call and talk through it and make sure that everyone's aligned. But again, we try and hit all those sectors of different identities, which is why we ask kind of those questions in the casting form, is to try and make sure we're being as good as we can with having diversity at the table.
That's amazing. The fact that, one, it's not just up to one person, but there's multiple people, and you kind of have like this process set aside. I think it makes sure that that people are seen and people are put at a table so they can have fun and, you know, play a game with people that they can at least resonate with on one level, if not many. And also, it can be an example for other tables as well, to be like, oh, this is what it should be like. It is possible. It's not impossible. And by the way, if you claim if it's impossible, it's not.
It's really not.
It's really not.
And I will own, like, I know, like, seasons, I think 1 and 2, I did my best, but I can't go back and say, like, I know that I can't definitively say, like, tables were 50% BIPOC every single time that we had a game. Because I think especially for season 1, that one was all about, like, building trust with players. A lot of people didn't know who I was, didn't know who the Queer XP was. And so there was, I think, a lot of trying to build up trust and doing outreach and networking and trying to find folks to make sure that we had that. So when I think we got to season 3, we were able to really have the, like, consistently 50% of players of color at the table. But the early seasons were, the first 2 seasons, it was calling up friends to be like, hey, do you want to play? Like, I know the AP content creation is not your vibe, but you're my friend. Would you be willing to come on and play? So we can, like, I want to make sure that we're having a diverse table. So starting there, and it was a lot of work to build up to, I think, where we are today.
I mean, on top of making sure that your tables are diverse, part of your tagline is also uplifting marginalized game designers. Mm-hmm. What does that look like? What does the process look like of finding games that tell those types of stories?
Yeah. So I hyperfixate at times, and anytime I buy a charity itch bundle with, like, hundreds upon hundreds of games, I will take the time when I have it, and right now I have plenty, and I will go through and start scrolling through all the games that are in there, find the ones that seem of interest, look up who designed the game, and I have a massive spreadsheet, which I think right now has 250 games sitting in it, of, like, things that I own from itch, and I go through that and I code them with, like, what games are by basically, like, seemingly straight white men, and what games are made by from marginalized voices. So when you go through the spreadsheet, which I share with my team, we're trying to figure out games we want to run. You can literally just scroll and see, like, all of the ones that are highlighted in a certain color, meaning that they are from a game designer of color, or, well, not game designer of color, game designer of a marginalized background or marginalized identity. And then we can start sifting through and be like, okay, so we want to run, you know, these games because these are indie games that hit the criteria of what we're looking for. So I think, again, I mean, that's because I'm that way. We're like, right now, at time of recording, the No Ice in Minnesota charity bundle has gone up, which has literally 1,000+ things in it. And I've been going through chunks at a time and pulling things that look interesting to run. So, like, that's a big piece of it. And then also, I think just getting to know game designers themselves. Like, I need to say it come more confidently. I'm a game designer. And so, like, being able, I think, to kind of connect with folks and be like, hey, I'm looking for games from specifically Black game designers. Who do I know that's written something, or what do I know that is out there?
That's amazing. Yeah, I got to play one of your games.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
and it might, and by time this releases, it might actually be up on itch.
Look, we don't. It's a
fine.
Process. It's
it
a
is.
Process.
It's a process, and when it's mostly a side hobby that's not making you money, sometimes other things have to take the priority.
Well, that, and if you're doing it alone, it's like I have to prioritize different things. Mm-hmm. So you're like, this is not that top priority just yet. Maybe if I'm able to get this much of my list done, I can work on it.
And when you're teaching yourself how to do layout in Affinity Publisher, and you're like, do I have the brain space today to learn how to do an entire layout?
Yeah, or like creating stat blocks from nothing. Or so at the time of recording this, I just saw on Blue Sky there's somebody's coming out with a thing called lore blocks instead of a stat block. And I've been wanting to do something like that because I'm like, I want my things to be like the worlds that I build to be used in different games, not just D&D. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, so they have like a list of priorities and like commonalities that you can, instead of, this gets +5 on hit, you can make a fleshed out monster or NPC that can be used in any game. And I'm like, oh, well, I now know what to use for my homebrew stuff. But tell the people what your game is, by the way.
Yeah, so my game, which again, I'll just keep saying it because it'll have to be true, which should be up on my itch page at this point, is called The Final Queers. It is a Powered by the Apocalypse slasher-inspired tabletop RPG where currently there are 10 playbooks, which can range from characters like the Wallflower, the Circuit Queen, the Artist, the Elder Queer, the Witchy Queer, and a number of others, kind of pulled from both horror and queer media inspirations. And it's designed in a way to do one-shots or short campaigns or longer standing games if you want something a little bit longer. But it has been my little labor of love for probably the last 2 years at this point, maybe longer. Because as we said, what is time? But I'm really excited. It's very much in I just need to make a couple last passes over things and make sure that everything looks good, and it should be able to go up. I'm aiming for it to go up because we've got at time of recording, which is February, it'll be up. I'm aiming for Friday the 13th in March because that felt thematically correct. And it's also right before PAX East. So if I have it out during PAX East, publicity.
You can talk to people about it.
Yeah. Hey, my game is up. You should buy it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Speaking of PAX East, look, I know this is coming out in June and we're talking about the past, but if you're going, I'm excited to see you. So,
I'm so pumped. I will definitely be there and I will see you.
Yes. I mean, what does it mean to write a story, a queer game like that?
I think because for me, it feels really I've enjoyed so much putting this game together. I've enjoyed running it because this is the one that you played in, correct?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
I got to. Yeah, it's on Spotify and where you find your podcast. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
I'll link it down below.
I think it's been such a fun process. I had so much. I am somebody who has so much fun with world building and character building and some of those things that I've genuinely had a lot of fun putting this together. And I think part of the reason that it stalled out a little bit is because I stopped doing the fun part, which was making all of the stuff, and then had to be all right, now I got to copy paste all this into this other platform. But I mean, there's definitely I don't think what I'm doing with this game is something that is fully unique in the sense that there are lots of other cool queer focused games that are out there these days. But I just took two things that I really love, which is queer cinema content media and horror content media, and shove those two things together to give people just a fun experience. And so, yeah, I think I am hopeful that when it goes up on the store and it starts making its rounds, that it'll be something that people connect with. So we'll see.
Hell yeah. Okay, so let's get back to the Queer XP, and because, not because you've run the game on your own podcast, what did it feel like to finally, be like, all right, guys, we're going to play this, and going into the production side of that?
I mean, terrifying, right? You're like, yes, I've play tested a couple times before, and like, I think there is a level of like, nobody else knows the rules as intimately as I do. So if I mess something up, like, people may not know. Um, but I think there is a level of like, I think it's easy for us to like run other people's games because you're like, oh, like, if you get done and you end the recording and people will kind of all do like the game, like, we had a good time, but the game, it might not have been, there were some spots I might have tweaked some things up, or, I didn't love a certain mechanic. Because I think that happens anytime you play games, right? You hit end and like people have things they really liked about the system and the game, and people have things that maybe that didn't resonate with them. But when it's your game and you are about to record in a way that people are going to listen to it, I think that does make it. I think that puts an extra layer of pressure on you to make sure that like you're running it correctly, you're giving people the experience that you hope that they'll have. But I think I kind of just went in and was like, you know what, we'll have some fun and we'll tell a cool story and we'll see what happens. And it seemed to go, like, it went well. I had time with it, but it was, yeah, I mean, definitely the pressure is always something that's going to be there when you're like, this is my baby, and now I'm putting it out for everyone to play and hear and all of this.
What does production look like on the back end for an episode of the Queer XP?
Yeah. So for us, I think, like, obviously, like, we go through like our casting process, we do all of that, we get people into our Discord server. Typically if something is a one shot, we try and do the session 0 more in the channel, where it might be like, hey, here's the stuff on character creation, here's some of these things, let's talk a little bit. If we need to like get everyone together depending on the game, we may pull everyone into a call beforehand, and that one's one where we try and make sure we're respecting the players as well. Like, if a player says like, I really want a session 0, we will do our best to make a session 0 happen. But I think for a number of them, especially ones that it's like, this game has 1 dice that you roll, it has 2 stats, like character creation, we can do it like the front end of the call. We can have some of those conversations to get us a little bit more grounded. If it's a longer session, like if it's a 4-part, which are a mini series, we have when we do the casting call, we'll schedule the session 0 as part of that. Again, get people into Discord spaces, let people kind of get not comfortable, but like just get to know each other, right? Like, I see those channels when people are in them, just doing intros and chatting about things and trying to kind of get a sense of one another. And then when we get to the recording itself, we use Zoom, because from everything that I've kind of researched a bit, Zoom has the most accessibility options that we've been able to find. It does then cost money to use it, but like, my first season was on, I forget which platform it was on. It wasn't Zoom. But then I had somebody who had somebody who was hard of hearing, and so we needed to have captions and some other like accessibility options available. And Zoom at that point was the only thing that I was able to find that met that. That was years ago. Could be different now. There could be a lot more options out there that I just haven't found or explored. But we'll do Zoom. And from us, the one big piece is accessibility for players who aren't like from a content creation space originally, which means we record the audio tracks individually through Zoom and then have them downloaded, because there's a barrier to entry for people who aren't familiar with OBS or aren't familiar with other options for how to record things. And so we try to remove we try and lower the threshold to be a part of the show. And so we do that on our end. And then afterwards, it's either myself or one of our audio editors trying to make it all sound good and clean it all up.
I mean, what does the timeline look like from start to finish?
Oh, it's a many months span. So like we will probably we're finishing up recruiting for our season 5 team, because we will have 2 positions open after we wrap up season 4. I would venture that probably by the end of March we will have put out a call for September's games, and maybe September, October, like maybe even a little bit more. We try to record things. I usually try and aim to have a recording date 2 to 3 months before release date. That gives editors time to do things. It gives people who are working on promo, who are working on other things. It gives everybody time to do things, and it makes it so we're not rushed up against a wall where it's like, okay, we recorded on a Monday. The episode needs to be done by Friday. Like, we try and give ourselves that grace because we all know that life gets in the way. And the number of times that I've had like somebody who's like, hey, I'm supposed to be editing this episode, but like stuff's getting away from me. Can somebody else jump in? And because we have that buffer built in, it gives us a little bit more flexibility if like I have to jump in and do something. So I would say like March or April would be probably like our September games when they would get casted, and then that process would happen over the summer, and then it would finally go out in September. So you're probably looking at like a 5 to 6 month lead time for each episode.
That one I understand all too well, because I'm just like, as a one-woman team, I'm like, I've got to do all these things. Having a team, hey, I would love that. I would love that so much. And I mean, like, you went from a one-person team. How did you make sure to, whenever you wanted to bring on a team of other people to help you, releasing it to those people, because it is your baby, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I brought we had our first team for season 3 was the first time that we had like a team. And I think at that point, even when I was recruiting, it was like, okay, here are the goals that I have with this pod right now. Here are the things that I would love to see be able to grow a little bit. So I was like, 1, my graphic design skills are garbage. I would love episode promos to look better. I would love for there to be episode promos that didn't look like I made them in MS Paint. Listen, they don't look that rough.
No shade. No shade at people who use MS Paint.
I know people who use MS Paint, and it looks hilarious, and it's on brand, and like that's great. Mine stuff just always looked like, like when you see that meme of like graphic art is my passion, like that's me. But there was things like that. We were trying to figure out how to launch a Patreon, so I had somebody that I brought on to be like, hey, can you research this, because I don't have the bandwidth to kind of be in it. So we brought people in with that in mind of like, what are some ways that folks could have some ownership over the pod and be involved with the pod. And even at that time, it was like, I'm bringing some folks in. I was like, hey, like when we get to points of like casting or having other big decisions to make, we definitely want to talk it all through. And then still at the end of the day, like it's still my name that's like attached to everything. So, like if a casting list goes out, like if we've all discussed it, the final say is usually on whoever is running the game itself. Now we have a co-host, like she'll get to sign off on her final crew. But yeah, it definitely is. It's a bit of a jump to be like, hey, I want to have new people involved with my little project here. But I will say the first team that we had was a lot of people who'd been involved with the pod in some way since its inception. And so I think there was also a level of trust there where like, what we're trying to do with this show, what the vibe is, what the goals are. So I feel good letting folks step into some of these spaces. And now that we have a team that's a little bit larger, we did the more open call for that team. And it was, again, I think like you just have to start trusting a little bit. And that's hard because it is it's your thing. But I think we've been fortunate to find a lot of really solid people who are really bought into what our show is and what we are trying to do. And I think they want to see it succeed just as much as the rest of us. And so I think that makes it a lot easier when you're like, okay, well, this part of the show is now in your hands, and I have to not be a helicopter parent or micromanaging supervisor. I just need to trust that you're there and you're doing your thing.
That's amazing, and hell yeah, yeah. I think one of those things is it that could easily be the one part that falls apart of being like, I have to give this away. No, but the fact that you found a team that you can trust and you found people who are bought into the idea of telling queer stories, of telling stories that resonate with not just queer people but people across different spectrums. Love that. I love that so much. What is some advice that you would give to people who are wanting to get into the production side of podcasting or like the actual play space?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me would just be like, just like dive in and start seeing what happens, right? Like if you want to do, and I say it's like, if you want to do an AP show, see if you can get a couple friends together. And this is what we did for the Queer XP. Actually, the episode, like the recording, I think is actually gone at this point, but we did a recording of a game before we ever released our first episode, because I wanted to see, what does editing feel like? What does the process feel like? Is this start to finish something I feel like I can do? Especially when it was just me running the whole show. Like, I was online, like, how do I do audio editing? Like I'm a Mac person, so I have GarageBand. Like, I don't need a bunch of bells and whistles. I just needed to take the audio, clean up gaps as best I can, clean up some of the utterances when they were really prominent, add a little intro outro music, and kind of call it a day. And so we got some people together. We recorded an entire 3-hour game, and then I went through and was like, okay, this is fully what it feels like, because you don't know what that's going to be until you do it. So I think it's dive in, give yourself the space to like test out, what are my strengths, what are the areas I need to like lean on for support, or have somebody else join me on this if I'm not the one to do it. And then I also think the other thing is, your first season isn't gonna be perfect. I mean, we're on season 4, and I still like, we're doing our best. Or we're on season 5, and like we're doing solid. Like, are there still times where like a mistake happens, or an episode comes out where I'm like, like I didn't edit it that quite as well as I would have loved to, or I didn't GM it as well as I would have loved to? Absolutely, it happens. But I think those are like my big things. Like, dive in, play around in the sandbox, and figure out what tools you need and what things you need to learn. And then it's that old phrase of like, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. It's okay to put out something that is fine, that is good, that gets what you're doing across, even if we're not gonna be Critical Role. We're not gonna be Dimension 20. Like, we're not gonna be these high production value shows that have tons of money coming in. Because I think I still lose money on this venture at this point. Like, I don't think I'm making money or even breaking even. So like, it's okay if I'm not Brennan Lee Mulligan trying to run a show and doing it with cool sound effects and graphics and whatever else. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, it's great to compare yourself to see like how far you've grown, but don't compare yourself to the top. Compare yourself to people who are within the same sphere. I think that's another piece of advice I would give people.
And even from that, like, even, because I think some people even like within the sphere will still look at games that are doing exceptionally well, and being like, man, I really want to be like X, Y, or Z. And it's like, not everyone's going to be Transplaner. Like, not everyone's going to be some of these other productions that are just doing really, really, really good work. And sometimes it's okay to start off and be like, this is a simple audio AP. We didn't add sound effects. We didn't like, It's just what it is. Uh, and I think comparing yourself to yourself is even more helpful, because when you can be like, okay, season 1 did numbers that looked about like this. Season 2, those numbers are definitely up. Season 3, though, like when you can look at that progression and see how well you are doing against yourself, I think that is sometimes even the better metric than like, am I doing better than other people? Because what's like, success looks different to so many different people.
Yeah, that I still go back and look at, you know, numbers from this thing or like content that I've made in the past, and I'm like, I've grown. I can see the changes that I've made. I can see the editing choices that I've done, and I'm sure it's the same with y'all. Like you go back and you're like, oh, this is we've grown leaps and bounds. So, so while when this is being dropped, it's the middle of June.
Yep.
It's the middle of June. What does the Queer XP have for Pride Month?
So, well, we will be. I think we will be dropping. We did a recording of the Between from Gauntlet Games, or the Gauntlet, and we actually had Jason Cordova come on and GM for us to do that. It's a 2-shot. I think I may be aiming for that to drop in June, because that feels good. I have always put out this kind of like odd mentality where it's like, we do content the rest of the year, and like could we stay on and do another month of content in June and do an extra like Pride thing? Yes, but also for us at the same time, like everything we do is queer, and everything we do celebrates the idea of queer pride in some way. And I would much rather have our content be, because I've worked in higher education for very many years. My brain works in an academic calendar cycle. So like, that's why we like falls. Usually when we start, we wrap up in May. So we don't do a lot during Pride, other than like maybe guesting on other things or promoting some of our stuff. Because again, I think we do a lot of that during the year. But I'll just say the Between 2 parts should be dropping at some point if it's not out already. And then this is the summers where we're like gearing, we're in the thick of recording. We're getting things ready for the next season launch. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm like, I don't have like, it's so weird. Like I don't have things to like super plug for Pride.
But what would you say to people that want to do something for Pride, that you're like, oh yeah, go support these people, go support this, this, that, or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, like, if people are doing things for like the different pods are out there doing things for Pride, I encourage people to like, if you're able to get involved with those shows. If you're somebody who's doing a pod and LGBTQ is not necessarily the focus of your pod, but you're like, oh, I want to do a Pride episode. I think do some of that digging and be like, okay, so like what games can I highlight? Like what game could I run that highlights not only a queer designer, but also like queer themes in your game? I'm thinking of one that we ran, and the name of the game designer is going to escape me, but it was called Those of Us Who Knew Better, and it was about being trans superheroes. And canonically, every PC is trans. And it kind of has this fun, like everything everywhere all at once vibe, where when you use your superpower, you have to like, you have a thing that you have to like either do to make it happen, or you have to do afterwards, or something bad will happen. So like one of my players, when we ran it, I think it had like, I must eat red Skittles after I use my ability. And that was a game that really centered queerness in its story and in its mechanics and in everything that it did. And so I think if you're running things for Pride, trying to find some of those opportunities or find some of those games. And again, if you're somebody who's ever bought one of those charity bundles on Itch, I promise you probably own about 70 different games that hit on those markers.
Exactly. Are we going to be seeing the Queer XP at other cons this year?
Well, we would have been at PAX East by the time this dropped, and I am fingers crossed and manifesting good energy that PAX Unplugged, we'll be able to make it. And that my hope is I want to put together a highlighting Philadelphia drag performers and do like a Dungeons and Drag Queens vibed show. So I'm currently working on kind of connecting with the Philly drag scene folks to see what we're able to pull together, because I do think like we did something similar at PAX East with Boston Drag, and I would love to see something similar at Unplugged again with like local drag to highlight some of the drag that is in that community. Because sometimes like that you don't always get that experience.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed.
I know a place that would gladly take y'all. So
well, I want to do it like at PAX Unplugged, like as a show. We did it last year at PAX East. We did Trans Vampire Cowboys was the game. We had an all drag
with Juicy.
We had Juicy Garland. We had who was a shape shifting horse who was a horse while on a train heist. But I don't know what game we'll end up submitting for, but I would love to put something together, and again like highlighting some like local drag in the community to really put on a fun show.
Hell yeah. Yeah, hey y'all in Philly. Just saying. Get in touch with Eric. We'll have all the contact information, website stuff down below. Speaking of which, tell the people where they can find you. Plug your shit.
Yeah, so you can find the Queer XP on both Blue Sky and Instagram at the Queer XP on both platforms. You can find me on most places under the name Falcon Wizard, including my itch store, which is Falcon Wizard. Or I think I put Falcon Wizard Games is the official title on it. Again, anticipating that I get my stuff together and it's actually on the store. The final quizzes will be there. I have another game that I put together for a game jam that is built on the Charge system, which is like Forged in the Dark, but a little bit less crunch. And that one's called Flame Agents, and it is inspired by Q-Force and other spy heisty things. And then there is a Monster of the Week supplemental that I put together that's Shady Vines Village, and it's a whole location with like NPCs and places to visit, and 4 or 5 mysteries for a keeper to run, as well as just some like lore and history and things to build out maybe some of your own mysteries within the space. So Falcon Wizard on most things, Queer XP for the pod, and that's where you can find us.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me. This was so fun.
Yeah. You can find all of their links down below in the doobly-doo show notes, wherever you want to call it. Speaking of finding people on the internet, you can find me everywhere on the internet at Shelly Von Miller, because branding is important, and I don't want 20 different accounts with 20 different names. Just saying. Look, there will never be after the table. I did my social media management thing at one point in my life. I'm a millennial. I've had many lives. But you can also find me on Patreon. Hey, where we're going to go record the lovely table sets segment. This or that game. You can become a lovely little patron for as low as free for early access to the podcast, or $7 a month where you can get the table sets episode. I'm just saying. With that being said, I love you guys very much, and I will see you on the internet. Goodbye.